What if everything you thought you knew about hip-hop's biggest mystery was a lie? What if the most legendary rapper who ever lived didn't actually perish on that Vegas Strip in 1996, but instead orchestrated the greatest disappearing act in music history? And what if he's about to return with evidence that could destroy Jay-Z and Diddy forever? The internet is absolutely losing its mind right now, and you're about to understand why. Before we dive into this rabbit hole that's about to blow your mind, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next because this story is about to get wild.
The conspiracy theory that's currently setting social media ablaze isn't your typical celebrity rumor. We're talking about claims that Tupac Shakur, the man who defined an entire generation of hip-hop, staged his own demise to escape powerful enemies who wanted him eliminated. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. The theory suggests he's been hiding in Cuba for nearly 3 decades, gathering evidence, building a case, and preparing for the ultimate revenge against the people who betrayed him. Think about how crazy that sounds for a second. The most influential rapper of all time supposedly living in exile, watching as his rivals built billion-dollar empires on the foundation of his alleged elimination. And now, as those same moguls face their own legal nightmares, mysterious videos are surfacing online showing a man who looks eerily similar to an older Tupac. Social media detectives are analyzing every pixel, every gesture, every shadow, trying to prove what seems impossible.
The timing couldn't be more perfect for conspiracy theorists. Just as Diddy sits in federal custody facing charges that could put him away for life, and just as Jay-Z finds himself entangled in shocking allegations that threaten to destroy his carefully crafted image, these Tupac sightings explode across the internet like digital dynamite. Coincidence? The believers say absolutely not. Let's talk about what sparked this latest wave of madness. A bodyguard named Michael Nice stepped forward claiming he was part of a secret team that helped Tupac escape from Las Vegas to Barbados and then eventually to Cuba, where Fidel Castro himself provided protection. According to Nice, the whole thing was orchestrated because certain powerful figures in the music industry had put a target on Tupac's back, and the only way to survive was to disappear completely.
Now, most rational people would dismiss this as pure fantasy, but here's what makes it sticky. Nice provided specific details about the operation, mentioned names of people involved, and even claimed to have documentation proving the escape route. Whether any of this is true doesn't matter as much as the fact that millions of people want to believe it. Because if Tupac really did fake his own passing, then everything we've been told about that night in Vegas, about the East Coast-West Coast war, about who really runs hip-hop, becomes a massive lie. But the story gets even more twisted when you factor in what's happening to Diddy right now. The man who built Bad Boy Records into a cultural empire is currently locked up in Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center, facing federal charges that read like something out of a crime thriller. We're talking about allegations of racketeering, trafficking, and running what prosecutors describe as a criminal enterprise disguised as a record label. The federal indictment paints a picture of a man who used his power and influence to control, manipulate, and exploit people for decades. Prosecutors claim they have evidence of coercion, of parties that were more like crime scenes, of a system designed to silence anyone who dared to speak out. And here's where the Tupac conspiracy gets really dark. If these allegations are true, then Diddy has been operating like this for decades, which means he was already this kind of person back in 1996, when Tupac was supposedly eliminated. This is where conspiracy theorists start connecting dots that maybe shouldn't be connected, but the pattern they're seeing is absolutely chilling. They point to the fact that Diddy has been mentioned in police files related to Tupac's shooting before. Former gang members have claimed that Diddy offered money for hits on both Tupac and Suge Knight. For years, these claims were dismissed as street rumors and jailhouse gossip. But now that we're seeing what Diddy allegedly did to maintain his empire, those old stories don't sound quite so crazy anymore.
Jay-Z's situation adds another layer of complexity that conspiracy theorists are absolutely devouring. Here's a man who went from selling drugs on Brooklyn street corners to becoming hip-hop's first billionaire. And the timeline of his rise is what makes people suspicious. His debut album dropped in 1996, the exact same year Tupac supposedly died. Within months of Tupac's elimination from the scene, Jay-Z's career took off like a rocket ship, and he never looked back. Now, correlation doesn't equal causation, but when you're dealing with conspiracy theories, logic often takes a backseat to narrative, and the narrative here is absolutely explosive. The theory suggests that Jay-Z somehow benefited from Tupac's disappearance, that maybe there was coordination between him and Diddy to clear the field of their biggest competition. Whether that's true or not, the timing is undeniably suspicious, and social media detectives are having a field day with it.
Recent legal developments have made this conspiracy theory even more compelling to believers. Jay-Z now finds himself named alongside Diddy in a lawsuit alleging horrific crimes from decades ago. The accusations are so serious that they could destroy everything he's built if proven true. His legal team is fighting back aggressively, but the damage to his reputation might already be done, especially as these old conspiracy theories get dragged back into the spotlight. The alleged Tupac memoir that conspiracy theorists keep talking about is supposed to be the smoking gun that ties everything together. According to the rumors, this isn't just a collection of angry lyrics or bitter rants. This is supposedly a detailed account of industry corruption, naming names, providing dates, and laying out exactly who is involved in the conspiracy against him. If such a document exists, and if it ever sees the light of day, it would be the equivalent of a nuclear bomb going off in the entertainment industry.
But here's what makes this memoir theory particularly dangerous for Jay-Z and Diddy. It's not just about personal beefs or artistic rivalry. The claims suggest that this document contains evidence of criminal activity, of violence, of corruption that goes to the very heart of how hip-hop's power structure was built. We're talking about allegations that could potentially support federal investigations, that could give prosecutors the ammunition they need to build even stronger cases against these moguls. The secret recordings that allegedly exist are even more explosive than any written memoir. Think about it. If Tupac really was as paranoid and strategic as his fans believe, wouldn't he have recorded conversations with the people he suspected were plotting against him? Wouldn't he have gathered evidence to protect himself? And if he did gather that evidence, and if he's really been alive all this time, then those recordings have been sitting somewhere for nearly 30 years, just waiting for the right moment to surface.
Imagine Jay-Z hearing his own voice from 1995 or 1996, played back in a courtroom, admitting to things he thought no one would ever find out about. Imagine Diddy, already facing life in prison, suddenly confronted with audio evidence that ties him not just to recent crimes, but to the industry's original sin. The psychological impact alone would be devastating, but the legal implications could be absolutely catastrophic. This brings us to one of the most disturbing aspects of the whole conspiracy theory. The pattern of suspicious timing that believers point to isn't limited to Tupac's supposed demise. They've started connecting dots between other tragic losses in the industry, pointing out that several major artists passed away on the 25th of different months. Aaliyah on August 25th, Left Eye on April 25th, Michael Jackson on June 25th. To most people, this looks like coincidence, but to conspiracy theorists, it looks like a signature.
The theory suggests that there's been a systematic elimination of artists who either knew too much, demanded too much control, or posed a threat to the established power structure. Whether you believe this or not, you can't deny that the music industry has a long and documented history of exploiting artists, stealing royalties, and silencing people who tried to speak out against corruption. So when these theories emerge, they find fertile ground in an audience that already suspects the worst about industry executives. What makes the current situation even more volatile is how social media amplifies every rumor, every alleged sighting, every supposed piece of evidence.
TikTok users are analyzing blurry photos from Cuba, Twitter threads are dissecting old interviews for hidden clues, and YouTube channels are dedicating hours to breaking down every aspect of the conspiracy. The algorithm feeds on engagement, and nothing generates engagement quite like a good conspiracy theory about beloved celebrities.
The psychological element here is fascinating and terrifying at the same time. Millions of fans grew up believing their hero was taken from them too soon, killed in a senseless act of violence that robbed the world of incredible art. The idea that he might still be alive, that his story isn't over, that he could return to expose the truth and get justice is incredibly appealing. It transforms a tragedy into a triumph, a victim into a strategic mastermind, an ending into a new beginning. But let's consider what this means for Jay-Z and Diddy from a purely practical standpoint. Even if these conspiracy theories are completely false, even if there's no secret memoir, no hidden tapes, no living Tupac plotting revenge, the damage is still very real. Public perception matters enormously in the entertainment industry, and both moguls are already dealing with serious legal challenges that have damaged their reputations.
Jay-Z has spent decades building himself into a brand that represents success, intelligence, and business acumen. He's positioned himself as hip-hop's elder statesman, the guy who figured out how to turn street credibility into boardroom respect. But now, he's facing allegations that could destroy everything he's worked to build, and the resurrection of old conspiracy theories only makes things worse. Every business partner, every endorsement deal, every carefully negotiated contract becomes a potential liability when your name is associated with this level of controversy. Diddy's situation is even more precarious because he's already in federal custody facing charges that could put him away forever. His legal team is fighting an uphill battle against prosecutors who seem confident they have the evidence to prove their case. The last thing he needs is a flood of conspiracy theories reminding everyone about old allegations connecting him to Tupac's shooting. Even if those theories are baseless, they create a narrative that makes him look guilty of everything he's accused of.
The business implications are staggering when you really think about them. We're talking about empires worth billions of dollars that could crumble if these allegations gain enough traction. Jay-Z's ventures span everything from music streaming to luxury brands to sports management. Diddy's reach extends into television, alcohol, fashion, and media. The ripple effects of their downfall wouldn't just hurt them personally, it would devastate countless employees, artists, and business partners who depend on their success. This is where the conspiracy theory becomes more than just entertainment. It becomes a cultural flashpoint that forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about power, corruption, and justice in the music industry. For decades, fans and artists have complained about unfair contracts, stolen royalties, and exploitation by executives who prioritize profit over people. The idea that Tupac could return with evidence of this corruption appeals to everyone who's ever felt cheated by the system.
The timing of these theories also coincides with a broader movement toward artist independence and transparency in the music business. Today's musicians are more likely to own their masters, more likely to speak out against unfair treatment, more likely to use social media to bypass traditional gatekeepers. If Tupac really did return now, he'd be stepping into an industry that's more ready than ever to hear his message about corruption and exploitation. But we also need to acknowledge the dangerous side of conspiracy thinking. When theories become more compelling than facts, when speculation gets treated as evidence, when social media mobs decide someone is guilty based on rumors and innuendo, real people get hurt. Careers get destroyed, families get torn apart, and justice becomes secondary to entertainment. The line between healthy skepticism and destructive paranoia is thinner than most people realize.
The psychological impact on Jay-Z and Diddy must be enormous, regardless of whether they're actually guilty of anything. Imagine waking up every day knowing that millions of people believe you're involved in murder, corruption, and cover-ups. Imagine trying to run a business, maintain relationships, and live a normal life while conspiracy theorists dissect your every move looking for evidence of guilt. Even innocent people would crack under that kind of pressure. This brings us to perhaps the most important question of all. What happens next? If these conspiracy theories continue to spread, if more alleged evidence surfaces, if the legal cases against Jay-Z and Diddy expand, we could be looking at the complete transformation of hip-hop's power structure. The moguls who've controlled the industry for decades could find themselves replaced by a new generation of leaders who promise transparency and accountability.
But there's also the possibility that this is all just noise, that the legal system will sort out fact from fiction, that conspiracy theories will eventually fade when confronted with reality. The problem is that in our current media environment, reality and perception often matter equally. Even if Jay-Z and Diddy are completely innocent of everything they're accused of, the damage to their brands and businesses could be irreversible. The most chilling aspect of this whole situation is how it reveals the fragility of even the most powerful empires. Jay-Z and Diddy seemed untouchable just a few years ago, masters of their domain, kings of hip-hop's mountain. But scandals, allegations, and conspiracy theories have a way of toppling giants faster than anyone expects. The same social media that helped build their brands is now being used to tear them down. And there's no controlling the narrative once it escapes into the wild.
As we watch this story unfold, we're witnessing more than just celebrity drama. We're seeing a reckoning with hip-hop's past, a confrontation with uncomfortable truths about power and corruption, and maybe the beginning of a new era where artists refuse to be silenced or exploited. Whether Tupac is really alive or not almost doesn't matter anymore. The conversation he supposedly wanted to start about industry corruption is happening without him, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. The question that haunts everything we've discussed is simple but profound. In an industry built on authenticity, how much of what we've been sold is actually real? How many of our heroes are actually villains? How many success stories are actually crime stories in disguise? And most importantly, are we finally ready to demand the truth, no matter how ugly it might be? If Tupac really is out there somewhere, watching all of this unfold, he's probably amazed at how his supposed return has already started the revolution he always talked about. The system he allegedly died fighting against is crumbling, and the moguls he supposedly feared are facing justice at last. Sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't a gun or a lawsuit, it's a story that refuses to die, a truth that won't stay buried, and a legend that's bigger than any one person.
What do you think? Is this the biggest conspiracy in hip-hop history, or just wishful thinking from fans who can't let go of their hero? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let's continue this conversation, because something tells me this story is far from over.